Hey, Disc Dungeoneers. Hope you are well and you're happy to hear the voice of the dove once again. It has been a very long while. I think August was the last time we have posted anything, and we want to change that. We've got a lot of great episodes coming at you pretty soon. We'll be working diligently in the dungeon, getting those sounds just right, harmonizing, if you will. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Anyway, I just wanted to share with you a very special episode where I'm joined by my good buddy from Down Under, Aussie Jace, who is known better as VHS Jace. So be sure to follow him on Instagram. And if you want to put me onto a very special tune, album, or any musics, please be sure to follow the Instagram or X, I still call it Twitter, at Disc Dungeon. And I will pop it into my playlist and start listening away. So reach out, hit us up, and then we'll start listening. So until our episodes drop off, enjoy this special episode with a collab from our good buddy VHS Jace, who is the sponsor, producer, and magic man behind all the beautiful designs on the Captain's Quadrant. And if you are missing my voice on a daily basis, you can check out our new podcast called The Captain's Quadrant and The Console Room on To Be Seen and at The Captain's Quadrant on its own channel. So until next time, be sure to jump in the dark depths of your computer disc to hear the sounds and melodies of wondrous musics that we have put you onto before and what we were putting you onto now. So thank you. Please give us a rating and hear more from us soon. Welcome back to the Disc Dungeon, where we put you on to musics and melodies from the deepest, darkest dungeons of your computer disc. I'm your co-host, Joe Dove, and with me for a very special guest is VHS Jace, the man that taps into your member berries and brings you all the wondrous sounds, visuals, and beautiful eclectics right in front of your eyes on TikTok, YouTube, and wherever you like to listen to nostalgia and happy melodies. Jace, welcome to the Disc Dungeon.
Oh, g'day, Joe. Thanks you very much for having me. I'm really excited to have a chat to you tonight about, well, I'll let you announce what we're talking about.
Yes, we are at the movies. So what we decided was Jason and I said, I'd love to have you on the Disc Dungeon because it'll be nice to have a foreign voice because if you haven't noticed, he has a little bit of an accent. He is coming all the way in from Australia to hang out with us here in the dark depths. And we are excited to have him. And we're both big movie buffs. So I said, you know what? Let's do a movie episode. It'd be amazing if I could put you on one of my favorite soundtracks, and that would be Blade Runner. And he said, you know what, my friend, I'm going to put you on to Daft Punk's Tron soundtrack. Tron, if you haven't noted, is one of my favorite movies. I've seen that movie a lot more than I'd like to let on. And in 2010,
Absolutely.
in 2010, that was a big moment for me because I had just gotten my second car. And that was a big upgrade. My first car didn't reverse. And there was a lot going on, but we'll get into that and behind the beat. But for right now, I put you on to Blade Runner. So is this the first time you're listening to the Blade Runner soundtrack in full?
Oh, no. Look, obviously, I'm I've been a film enthusiast for 45 of my 50 years life, 50 years of being on this planet. And film soundtracks are something that I've been very passionate about for a long time. So, no, Vangelis Blade Runner soundtrack is something that I experienced very young, probably about the age of 7, and has definitely been on my playlist from my whether I had the tape deck, whether I had the CD, whether I had the MP3 player, or eventually, the Spotify. So
Right.
yeah, no, I love the soundtrack.
You put me onto Tron. For me, I love the Tron soundtrack, but for me, it was a weird thing because though I own it, I've never listened to the whole thing. I've always listened to like 5 key songs, and that's it. So this was an opportunity for me to really dive into probably one of the better soundtracks in the last 10 years. Now that this is a 14-year-old movie, which
Mm.
baffles me,
It
especially
is
now that
crazy, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
time just
Oh, what I thought was very interesting, Joe, when you put the challenge to me, I thought about it, and you can imagine I love film soundtracks, and it's easy to go to some of the big ones. You know, it's
Mhm.
easy to go, well, how about a John Williams soundtrack or a
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer soundtrack or even a Jerry Goldsmith, but there was something about that soundtrack in 2010 when Daft Punk did it that was, to me, just this excellent fuse of electronic and classic cinema soundtracks.
Yeah. The thing about Vangelis, I know he uses like I think it was a Moog at the time, which is this at that time, which is this ginormous synthesizer that really hit all the
Yeah.
notes. And then he brings in folks to sing over the tracks that he's created. And he was really a brilliant man. And he passed away last year, no less.
Mm.
Was very upset when that happened
Yeah.
because this is the soundtrack that started me on the path of finding out more about Vangelis. I had no idea that he would work with some of my favorite artists like John Anderson, um, Michael Cretu from Enigma did some backup stuff for him. He regretted not being able to do a full album together, like a full project, which I think would have been really incredible. But he's worked with so many, including orchestras that epic opera singers time and time again. If you've ever heard, he has an album called Mythologia, and
Yeah.
that was for the Mission to Mars. Have you heard that as well?
I have.
Really? Oh wow!
Yeah,
Look at this. I'm finding out
absolutely
things
have.
about you now.
Yeah,
We could
yeah.
probably talk music again. Oh my god! It was just
Well,
such.
especially with this soundtrack, I
Mhm,
think one of the amazing things is the different genres he's infused into this Blade Runner soundtrack.
mhm,
I mean, he's sourcing from classic film noir soundtracks. He's infusing like there's Middle Eastern influences in
mhm.
certain tracks. There's all these neoclassical elements, and he's just infused it to make this almost tragic soundtrack, and it's just gorgeous. It just draws you into this world without even visualizing what the incredible visuals are of Blade Runner. You're there by just listening to the soundtrack.
Right, right. And
Mm.
one of the most amazing things about the Blade Runner soundtrack is the way it combines so many different periods of music.
Mm.
Because the Blade Runner movie itself is like I felt that Rachel's character, though it's very futuristic, she was dressed like somebody from the 1920s.
Mm.
You know what I mean? She had the power suit on with the pencil
Yeah.
skirt and the hair that was like a bob and
Mm.
everything. It was very, very
Well, this
interesting.
film is classic film noir in a science
Mhm,
fiction setting, so it is absolutely heavily influenced from those crime dramas of the 1940s, and visually and acoustically as well. I mean, they are going all in with this. This what makes it so unique to see so many influence from the past, but at the same time they're creating this futuristic soundtrack. It's genius.
So for me, the futuristic world of Tron, which also has like tethers into the 80s. It starts off with a very synthesizer sound as well, almost reminiscent of classic arcade games that we've
Mm.
played in the 80s. And then they take it to this next level, and it's really incredible. Daft Punk, the two gentlemen that are behind this sound, that totally, if they did not have this soundtrack, this movie would not be as epic as it was at that time.
Oh,
Um,
I'll be really honest with you. I think the soundtrack is the strongest part of this entire production. It's
wow.
actually, and as much as I love the visuals, I mean, the film has its weaknesses, but the soundtrack isn't one of them.
No.
It isn't one of them. And, you're talking about like their pop, techno, kind of electronic type of music, and then infusing this classic Hollywood big bombastic themes. It's really fantastic, and it takes you down like the Blade Runner soundtrack. It takes you on this audible journey, and it's just when it comes to world building in films, everyone thinks, oh, what's on the screen, the different environments and all that. Music has a lot to do with world building, and Tron Legacy soundtrack, Daft Punk, incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's the only one they ever did together.
Yeah.
However, one half Daft Punk, Thomas Bangalter, he did really, it's a very shocking film called Irreversible. He worked on the soundtrack for that.
Wow, that is a very shocking film.
That's a very shocking film.
Yeah, I saw
that's
Monica Bellucci.
Yeah, Monica Bellucci.
Yeah,
absolutely. And if you actually hear that soundtrack too, you can hear Daft Punk influence. Like you can hear Daft Punk in there, but here especially, I feel like they're not trying to hide who they are with this soundtrack. That they are being. This is Daft Punk's iteration of what a film soundtrack could be. It's a marriage made in heaven, to be honest with you, with this source material and those guys. Wow.
Yeah, everything kind of fit together like a perfect glove. And do you remember their one quick cameo in the movie?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, the arena battle, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're up the top there in the arena battle. Which is,
yeah. Oh, it's incredible. It was incredible. And then ironically, when so in case you guys didn't know, Jason and I work on a podcast called The Captain's Quadrant. Correct. Which can be seen on the YouTube and can be listened to on all your favorite Spotify and different.
Well, it's the best Star Trek podcast out. So
that's right. We have we have so much fun doing that. And one of the things that when you left and when you came back, I made this like cutout intro for you to come back, and I used the Daft Punk clip in there because I felt like they really made grandiose a thing.
Yeah, it was a spectacle film, John, and it required that kind of music, didn't it? It required your overtures, your big bombastic melodies, everything that you would need to make a soundtrack that is really, if I was to be really, really driving the narrative forward. And that's what the strength of this is like. There's certain times throughout the movie that you hear when they first get out of the city and they go to see Flynn, and there's a track called Outlands. And, that basically tells you what's happening right there. And then, so you're getting into the kind of the mysterious journey they're just about to go on. And then you go to something like the nightclub scene and you get Derez playing this high octane kind of electronic beat going. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. And even in the overtures and
the first track is great because it's a callback to Tron too.
Yes,
it's kind of like we know who we are. We are a sequel, but you're about to go and experience something next level.
Right? And it really was, and it really is. And if you haven't heard the Tron soundtrack, you're doing yourself a disservice. Please be sure to go and download that and listen to it as well. So now we are going into Behind the Beat. This is the section where we talk about behind the scenes stuff and what this music meant to us. So let's turn back the clock and go into your mind and try to put yourself 14 years in the past. And I will put myself 40 years in the past and go on about some of the experiences that have coalesced and aligned with our listenings and experiences with these soundtracks.
Well, when I went, so I talk about Tron. Sorry, Joe. Or
No. You talk about
either.
You talk about Tron, and then I'll talk about. I'll talk about.
Sorry about that.
No worries. No,
Tron. I mean, like I went in to go and see that movie. It's 2010. I'm a pretty regular film goer, so I'll go and see the film, and I'll be honest with you, my mindset, and I remember it distinctively, I was rather disappointed in the reviews I'd been reading. The reviews weren't great on opening weekend, so I felt a little bit deflated because I was really excited about the sequel. So I'm going in thinking, okay, it's not going to be as good as I want. And I go into this movie and it's almost like I had this bipolar experience because I could see where the flaws of the movie were, but I was just so struck by the music and the sound design. And it was, it's a good theatre. I go to a decent theatre to hear all the proper surround sound type of stuff. And it's just, I just remember straight away going, this soundtrack is next level. I've never heard anything like this. So I remember that being I went and saw it with my son
Oh,
and our mutual friend Rick.
oh
And
yeah,
yeah, we went and saw it. And I remember those two guys coming out of the cinema going, I didn't really like it. And me coming out and going, look, I agree, but that music, I've got to hear that music again. And I
yeah.
don't even think I had made it to the car without me getting on Spotify, finding the soundtrack, adding it to my playlist just so I could listen to it
Wow,
immediately. And it is on repeat constantly, Joe. I'll probably listen to that soundtrack
wow,
once every 2 to 3 weeks, if I was being
wow,
really honest. Yeah.
wow. Let's talk about legacy, Tron legacy. Like,
Well, it
wow.
puts me in a certain mindset and frame. It's actually great music to help you focus.
Yeah,
So
that's
if
what.
I'm doing work, and
Mhm.
as you know, I'm a videographer and I do a
Yep.
lot of motion graphics and stuff like that. So when I'm in the zone, when I'm editing without having to listen to audio or making motion graphics, this music just focuses me in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So my co-host on the show, Julian, will call this is the get shit done music. You put this on, no matter what it is you're doing, it's going to be done by the time the album is over, and that's so true.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Um, when I hear now, when I first got Spotify, one of the things that I noticed was Recognizer. That's the one where he's first coming into the world of Tron,
Hmm.
Flint's kid. I had played that 1,000 times. It was before they did the Spotify Wrapped Up.
Wow.
I
Wow.
literally just that one song. I never listened to like much else.
Mm.
Just the one song I had listened to
Mm.
over and over again, and I stopped listening to it because I had listened to. I was like, "Whoa, 1,000 times? That's a lot," you know. So I was like, "Let me branch out," and I
Mm.
like learned how to maneuver and navigate through Spotify, and I listened to a bunch of different things. But coming back and I said, okay, this is 14 years overdue. Let me hear the whole thing. And really getting into some of these songs like Rectifier, Arrival,
Mm.
the
Mm.
Disc Wars, especially having hearing
Yes.
that whole
Fantastic.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like
Yeah.
how in the downloaded version of the soundtrack, you actually get movie clip voicing in it,
Well,
which
the
is
grid
really-
features Jeff Bridges
right. Yeah.
explaining the world, explaining
Yeah.
the concept, which is really great.
Which is
Which is
really cool.
something fairly common, I notice, in film soundtracks.
Yes.
Even Blade Runner. If we were to move to Blade Runner, we're
Yeah.
hearing
We're hearing
Harrison
Harrison Ford.
Ford. We're
Yep.
hearing
Rachel.
Rachel's voice
Yeah.
in it. And I think even hear Root Haga
At the end,
character
yeah.
at the end. I think we hear that as
Tears in the
well.
Rain. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So let me go back in my time machine and go back 40 years. I am now, oh, when did this come out? 1984, right? So
No, 82 was Blade Runner.
82. Oh, God, I was an infant. All right. So I saw this for the first time in 1984 in Rhode Island where I
Mm.
grew up before I made the move over. And my dad absolutely loved this film. And then
Mm.
I remember sitting down, remember watching Deckard, and there was like some type of exposition, and then I fell asleep. And then again in 1989, when I moved to New York, my uncle would say, "Hey, did you ever see Blade Runner?" And it's like, "Oh, I think I did. I'm not sure." He's like, "We're gonna watch Blade Runner." I remember watching it, and I remember falling asleep. So two times it just took me out, and then finally they released the director's cut. I think it was like in '94 or something like that. I
Yeah.
remembered listening to the
The
whole.
controversial cut.
Yeah, very controversial because I think they made allusions to him being also a replicant.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was weird. And if it's a book based on Philip K. Dick work called "Do
Yes.
Androids Dream Electric
Of
Sheep?"
Electric Sheep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in that have you ever read that before I spoil it? Even though it's a 50
I
year
know
old.
the plot line, so there's no spoilers for
Okay,
me.
cool. Cool. That would kind of would feel bad because I
Yeah,
know you don't like
I
spoilers.
read an annotated version basically that had a
Yeah,
bit of a
yeah. So
synopsis on it.
yeah, in the book, that everything is very quick, and there's no. I mean, the character of Rachel's there. It's his niece, and the same substance is kind of
Mm.
spelled out for you. But he's married. He has somebody. He's not,
Yep.
he's not going to fall in love with an android in this one.
Yeah.
So it's a very different scheme of things. And then the main battle with Rutger Hauer goes completely different. He just shoots him in the hallway. Oh, we're done.
Done.
So
Well,
yeah.
the thing I must say, the issue with Blade Runner in our time, like, and I'm older than you, so
Yeah.
when Blade Runner comes out, I'm 9 years old when it comes
Oh
out,
wow.
and so for me, it was a really hard film to enjoy at 9 because my experience with Harrison Ford had seen him fly the Millennium Falcon,
Yep.
or hold
whip.
wear a fedora and a whip,
Mm-hmm.
like very action orientated, high energy roles. So for a 9-year-old to see this film, which visually blew my mind, I loved the car, I loved how it looked and all that, but actually trying to watch that film as a kid, it's not for children.
No.
I don't think I appreciated Blade Runner until I was in my 20s, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Took that long before I turned around and went, no, I like this film.
Yeah.
But I never used to tell anyone that I didn't like it, but I really didn't like it for the first 12 or 15 years of its life.
Mm. I mean, for me, it, like I said, it wasn't until 94 that I really got into it. It takes a while. You have to have an older mindset.
You do.
Yeah.
There's some big concepts at play in that film.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah, it's a bit much to take on as a 9-year-old.
Yeah. But a couple of things that I absolutely love that I listen to. This is a soundtrack that I listen. This is my Tron. I listen to this all the time. Yeah. It'll always be playing on my ride home or in my car driving somewhere. And every time that I pull up the Tales of the Future, everybody that's in my car is like, what is this? It's very Middle Eastern, very different. Yes. And people usually are like, oh, what happened? So there's very different connections that I have. One of my favorite songs, I remember we had this terrible thing called the Thunder Snow. You ever heard of that?
No.
It's a phenomenon where you're getting a very bad, what's considered to be thunderstorm nor'easter, along with a very bad blizzard.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. 6 years later, we got a thunder snow. And I remember
problems we don't have down here, mate.
Yeah, that's right. We had gotten 2.5 feet of snow. What is that translated?
It's a lot of snow, dude.
It's a lot of snow.
Close to a meter of snow.
Yeah, it's almost a meter. Yeah, because it's 3 feet in a meter, right?
No, meters. Yeah, about so 2.5, 3 feet.
Yeah. So we got a meter of snow, literally dumped on us at once. Yeah. And I remember when I had gotten these Panasonic headphones. These headphones I had from 1992. They were my uncle's. They were my mom's, and they were my grandfather's before. These Panasonic headphones I had for literally 15 years. And those existed since the 70s. So that's how good those headphones were. And I remember being in the snow, and I had to get a converter from Radio Shack because it had this like spiral cable. This spiral cable, and I had to put it into something to make it a smaller piece to go in my Walkman. Not even CD, Walkman, tape. I had this on tape. And I remember like being in the snow and just those snow drifts coming out, whop, and listening to Rachel's song as I'm shoveling snow and getting walloped with more snow. It was the most incredible experience that I still remember. And every time I hear that song, I remember that snowstorm and being absolutely buried and exhausted because you had to go out every few hours to like shovel. Otherwise you were going to be screwed with all this stuff.
It's the emotional connection to that music. It's one of those things about film soundtracks that I think a lot of people never really take notice. Mm-hmm. Like your average film goer and things like that, they occasionally may connect with the music, but it's never really a conscious thing. So sometimes I feel like as a film soundtrack like yourself, lover, it's kind of like we've got the secret. We're part of the secret club who actually really focuses and appreciates, film composers and soundtracks.
Right.
And I think some of the best music I have ever heard in my life have come from film soundtracks.
Absolutely. And this is one of them. To me, this is probably on my top 10 greatest soundtracks of all time.
That would be a list. You know, you get asked occasionally, what are your top 5, 10 films, which is an impossible task because your taste in that shift and move. It would be so hard for me to list
Really?
my favorite film composers and soundtracks. It would be tough because I love film composers from Italian film composers from the 60s who I absolutely adore, and films soundtracks from that period to all the way to Ludwig, you know, the guy that did the soundtrack for The Mandalorian, and
Yeah, he's very
things
good.
like that. So, I mean, and all the films in between, whether it's a could be a romantic comedy, it could be Schindler's List, it could be a horror film. That's what I love about film soundtracks. You know,
Mm,
like it crosses so many ideas and genres, and yeah,
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. That's what one of the best things. So, quick question for you, as
Mm-hmm.
a film connoisseur.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times when you get your first version of the soundtrack, it's an edited version. Have you ever listened to the full version of the Blade Runner soundtrack?
I have, and the only reason
Oh,
I have, and I haven't heard it in probably 30 years now,
oh
but I
wow.
remember it specifically because my brother, who collected vinyl, obsessed, and still is,
Mm.
he has albums that he bought in 1972. And what
Oh,
he used to do, he used to buy 2 copies, one to play, one to remain in the plastic seal. So he
oh
got
wow.
like some of the greatest albums of all time. Anyway, he bought the soundtrack. He got
Wow.
a hold of an extended edition. I can't even remember what year it was, Joe,
Oh
but I
man.
remember him putting it on, and it was phenomenal.
It
And it
is.
was so warm. And you know that texture of when you listen to vinyl?
Yes.
Like everybody talks about how it's got a different
It's got a
tone
different
and
sound.
feeling and different sound.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow, that was just echoing through the house that day.
Yeah. So
It
the thing
was
about
deserving.
vinyl is the way that it's EQ'd, and if you
Yeah,
EQ it right, your bass
yeah,
is heavier, your treble is on a
yeah,
level where it's blissful. It's not
yeah.
buzzing anywhere, and it's got a clarity that people don't understand exist
You
because in
know,
the
I know that because I almost caught a hiding from my brother who, as a kid, I decided, wow, what are all these?
oh no.
You know, and I'm moving all the equalizers around, and then he nearly kicked his little brother's backside for that one, and then explained to me what the deal was.
Oh
Because I'm like,
wow.
these go up and down.
Yeah, why do they do this? Yeah. Oh my god, because yeah, you want to get some of the so it's like frequency response, your highs and lows.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you edge out so that you don't get these like noises when you're listening
Mm,
to it. And then you'll get this sound that's so clear. It
mm.
is magnificent. You only hear
Yeah,
that in the beginning with the needle pulling on the vinyl, only in the
yeah.
beginning and the end.
Only,
Otherwise,
only in the beginning. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
otherwise it is
But
the
that
experience.
creates it unlocks a lot of memories when you hear that scratch. So for me,
Yeah,
yeah, like I love that. You know.
yeah, yeah.
But
So
no,
yeah,
these 2 soundtracks. It's so funny, Joe, because initially I thought, wow, we've picked something so different. But after listening to them both
nope,
again, they are so similar, Joe.
exactly.
That's what I
Ex-
found fascinating about this was like there are influences that they're both drawing on to make
Mhm.
this their individual soundtrack. So yeah,
Yeah,
out
that's
of all the composers we could have chosen and all the soundtracks we could have chosen, we actually chose ones fairly close.
what's amazing about the Disc Dungeon is something that Julie and I end up doing quite often. You'll be
Mm,
surprised at how many times, even in totally different genres,
mm,
there's so many connections in between the music. And
mm,
it is one of the most magnificent things that you can experience. Like
mm,
there is a guy named Sampha. He's an R&B artist
mhm,
from I believe he's from the United States. He's an
mhm,
R&B artist named Riley Ritchie, who's from the
mhm,
UK. Totally different sound, UK and America.
mhm,
But there were so many things that kind of interconnected anyway. Both of them
mhm.
had, different careers in the beginning, and it turns out they both ended up in music and they excelled at music. So, yeah, it's an amazing world
Mm.
of sounds and soundscapes and soundtracks when you put music together.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, in this section of Behind the Beat, this is where we give everybody a chance to talk about their works and their projects, and of course, their businesses in your case. So, plug away. This is your moment to tell everybody listening on this side of the pond or the ocean. There's a lot more than a pond between us.
Yeah.
The
Well,
side of
what
the planet.
well, I don't know even how to categorize myself anymore. I am a business owner. I run a company here in Australia called YK Productions. I do a lot of corporate work for big corporate entities, travel around Australia, do projects, and wide-ranging projects. It could be marketing videos, it could be events, it could be motion graphics, animations, things like that. Um, and so, yeah, I have that as well. And another arm to the business is I'm a podcast producer. So I've, as you know, Joe, we've worked together on several times on
Yeah.
creating podcast packages for people out there wanting to get into it, make their stuff look visually interesting, and have a simplified um, and really gorgeous kind of identity to their brand. We're about creating and helping support brands out there. So yeah, no, I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed. I get to not only do all that, I get to be able to work with people like yourself, our shared friend Jason Roy Gaston, on work and on hobbies. So it's yeah, that's what I do. For my social media, I've really just started getting back into that realm, but right now I'm all about TikTok. So go check me out at a VHS Chase. And what I do there, guys, is really simple. I'm putting up clips and intros and segments about everything that we grew up in Generation X. So there's a lot of stuff that is about triggering nostalgia. So, and I just do that for a bit of fun. And that's just about it, I would say, Joe.
All right. Um, for me, as you know, we've worked together on one of my probably most therapeutic and beloved projects, and that is the Captain's Quadrant.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I'm pulling you into the Disc Dungeon. This is the very first podcast that I've ever done. I've had so many wonderful memories doing this. This led me to become a uh, an ordained minister. I am an officiant. I can marry people. So I literally in 2022 traveled to South Carolina for the first time. I had never gone past Maryland. So that was the
Mm-hmm.
furthest south I had ever gone, and married my co-host to his beloved, his lovely wife.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that I loved doing. And I am so happy to have done To Be Seen, to have met you and Rick, and then to have done Captain's Quadrant and to build this world. And then you came and helped me out with To Be Seen. I am forever grateful. This stuff looks so much better. We have a new show called The Console Room that you guys can watch every Tuesday at 8 p.m. That
Yeah,
is a
great.
Doctor Who podcast that looks chef's kiss amazing. Thanks to the great work of VHS Jace over here. So his
Thank you.
links will be in the podcast notes if you're curious and you want to reach out and start your own podcast with very beautiful segments. That's a visual aspect of it. I
Mm.
highly recommend him. He is my go-to without a doubt. I am never going back to Fiverr because he just puts down work that's
Well, what
far
we
beyond.
do is, as you know, Joe, it's about not only creating maybe your logo, it's about creating your design, your brand. That could be the backgrounds for your podcast. That can be the intro video. That could be called segment bumpers that help you categorize your show, and thumbnail templates, because that's something. If you don't know how to do a thumbnail, but you want it to stand out and look unique, as you know,
Yeah.
Joe, I create templates. So not only do I create what the thumbnail is going to look like, I create a format where the end user can swap out, words and images
And
very
even
easily.
backgrounds.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Exactly.
Your packages are absolutely incredible, and I highly recommend them.
Mhm.
So we, the Disc Dungeon, will be back later on this year. We have 6 episodes in the pan. We have 6 more to complete, and then we're going to release a full year's worth once a month. Very excited to bring this music world back into the fray. It's going to be a lot of fun in Disc Dungeon back again. Our music therapy session, because music saves lives. I highly believe that, despite some of our previous guests saying otherwise. But I highly believe in that. And then I am going to drop off with Tricks of the Keys, which is one of my favorite segments on the show. And that is something, you know what? I will share this with you because you're getting a behind the beat over here.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because normally we look at these things together, but at the same time far apart. With the StreamYard that you've introduced me to fully, we can look at it at the same time, so people are getting behind the behind the scenes stuff. But one of the tricks of this is not so much the song, though it's a very interesting song because it has a total different tempo. It's one song and then it splits and becomes a song of the 80s, and that's Mick Smiley's Ghostbusters song
Oh,
called Magic. Do you remember it? I'm sure you know. I know you know Ghostbusters.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. You remember that song? It's
Ray
the
Parker Jr.
yeah, Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters theme. So the
Yeah.
Magic one is when the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper get together and the top of the apartment blows up and
Yeah.
and then the ecto unit blows up, the containment
Yeah.
unit. And then
Yes.
it's do 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 do
Oh,
do
that
do, do.
music, that
Yeah,
sample, yeah, that is a wonderful piece of music in that.
right. But the
All
wild
the
thing is
ghosts are loose in the city.
right, right. The
Yeah.
wild thing is this is his only song. He did this amazing song, and it's two parts. It sounds like a 1950s doo-wop song in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then it completely flips to new wave, and then it's an
Yeah.
incredible new wave. So he did two basically songs in one song,
Yeah.
and once that drop hits, it becomes something completely different. And when you go around in New York City, you may run into him uh, because he still lives there, and he has only this one song, Magic.
Yeah.
And a lot
Crazy.
of people will say, "Oh, for sure." And it even says here in the article, when I first looking for it, oh, I think I picked up the wrong track because you hear please, and then because it's such a different song in the beginning, he's empty words in this room. I see you in a crowd on the street, and it's just such like a cutesy little love song that you would expect something from the 50s.
Yeah.
And then he flips it into that new wave song that is just incredible.
Yeah.
And the drop is so dope. And the reason why this is a trick to the keys is not only do you have two songs in one, but the guy just disappeared and never went back into music because he did this one masterful piece and said, I don't want to be known. I am not a person that wants to be famous. I am not a person that wants to, have some
Yeah.
type of amazing notoriety. I just want to have my one hit, get my money, and go. And that's exactly what he did. He was technically a one hit wonder.
I was just seeing that article there. He also wrote, he also had a writing credit on that song Kiss Me Deadly
Right.
by, who was that? Letitia Ford? What's her name?
We'll go back.
What's
All right.
her
Kiss
name?
Me
It's a great
Deadly.
song. It's
Yeah,
a great
Letitia
song.
Ford. Yep.
Yeah, Letitia Ford. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kiss Me Deadly. Wow.
Yeah. And he was such a mystery that there was a MySpace page dedicated to finding him. I am getting this off of medium.com in case you're wondering and you want to read this article. I highly recommend it because it is such a mystery as to what the heck happened to this guy.
Yeah.
And then, he was a part of one of the best selling soundtracks of all time. And then he just disappeared. So that's the trick, is the magic that he produced just so happened to work for this one movie and then poof, went back into obscurity. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that is it.
I think it's great. I think that shows like, no, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. I'm just going to quietly go ahead and live my life. There's a
Mhm.
lot to respect about that, I think.
Isn't that wild? I figured you would appreciate that because I know you
Yeah.
for the past 2.5 years. It's like, oh, this is something he would appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I like it when people um just make choices because it's the right thing for them, and they don't get caught up in a machine that they can suffer from. I mean, a lot of people that get into the music industry or the film industry, think they spend most of their lives, fearful that they're going to be cast out or they're not going to be, known or appreciated anymore. And here's this guy going, "Nah, I'm good. I'll take my money. I've written some cool songs, and I'll happily just go about my business." I think that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, he had some personal issues in his life that I won't dive into, but if you're interested, please go check out
Who
that
doesn't?
Medium article. Yeah.
Who
And
doesn't?
yeah.
You live in this modern world. We all got problems.
Yeah,
so-
exactly.
That's
And
it.
that's kind of what pulled him away. But Jason, thank you so much for joining us in the dark
Oh, this has
depths
been a
of this dungeon.
blast. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a quite a different experience, but it's like I said, therapeutic because I love talking movies and I love talking the music behind the movies, the power that was the
Yeah,
soundtrack.
we haven't even scratched the surface of what we could talk about in film soundtracks. So I'll put it out there publicly. If you ever want to talk about film soundtracks again, I'd be more than happy to return.
I'd love to have you on, and you got to meet my co-host, so we got to schedule that. That would be amazing. That would be
Great.
Fun episode because we're talking about doing movies. I met a young man from the Karate Kid movie who wanted to be on, so that'd be kind of fun to have everybody talking about.
Very cool.
That movie and some other things.
That from the original.
Yeah, from the original.
Oh well, that's got a couple of fantastic songs in there. Soundtrack.
It really does. Yeah. It really does.
You're the best around. Nothing's gonna bring you down.
That's right. Awesome. That's right. All those good memories. All right. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for downloading. Thank you so much for taking the time and going through it all with us. There's so much more available to you. You can download that, including our one episode, which is now in the 600 downloads. We appreciate each and every one of you listening to that episode. That is Mirrors, where we reflect on the music of Justin Timberlake and the Supreme Beings of Leisure, who just dropped their new album, Contender, which is absolutely fantastic. We will be back soon, and once we do, we will have a couple of Dove Dives where I'll be talking about music that people put me onto separately, and then Julie and I will be back rocking and rolling. So please do us a favor, help us out. Please rate this in your Apple, Spotify, and all of those wonderful podcast places that you're listening to. And if you're in Iowa, where our number one downloaded state, we have more people listening to us in Iowa than anywhere else in the world. Please go and check us out, and please rate us. And we appreciate each and every one of you for doing so. So until next time, keep it groovy, dust off those vinyls, and be sure to prep your EQs properly.